Has your steam wand started to drip? If so, then stay tuned, as that will be the subject of today's show. A dripping steam wand is fairly common, especially if you've had your machine a few years. It doesn't affect making coffee at all, it's really more of an annoyance. But more importantly, it's an indication that it needs a good service. And it may be leaking water inside, which is going to cause corrosion. And rust is a cause of a lot of problems on these machines. The first thing we need to do is to take the lid off so we can access the steam valve. The next thing we need to do is to take off the steam handle. These could be difficult to pull off, but I find it's much easier if you're wearing rubber gloves. The steam valve can also be difficult to remove sometimes, especially if the bracket is corroded like this one is. But a flat bladed screwdriver usually does the trick. You can see here that this valve has been serviced in the past, and instead of using the correct O-ring material and size, they've wrapped Teflon tape around a silicone O-ring that's used elsewhere in the machine. Most of the other ones in the machines are size 7s, whereas we need a size 8 in this one. Also, we can't use silicone here. While silicone's good for compression tubing, it can tear very easily, so anywhere where you've got moving parts such as this one, you shouldn't be using silicone. The best ones to use here are the green HNBR type O-rings, and it's actually what Breville use when they build these machines. I'll leave a link in the description for some of these. Another option would be the FKM or Viton O-rings, but from what I've read, they're not as tear resistant as the green ones. Now that we have the valve all apart, it's a good time to mention that there are 4 failure points on these valves. So I'm afraid if you have any of these, then flipping seals or changing O-rings just isn't going to work. Okay, so first up is the ball. If there's just a bit of scale and lick, great, give it a brush off with a wire brush. But if you see any pits on there or there's any damage on it, then it's got to be replaced. Second is the ball key. It has a little notch on top that sits in where the groove on the ball. This can also wear down and become unusable. Then we have the housing that the key sits inside of. This can wear out, especially if the O-rings have worn out in the past, so you're just getting metal on metal basically. You can see on these pictures here that the worn one's totally circular, the opening is, whereas it should have it should be more of an oval shaped. Then finally the inside part of the steam knob that connects to the other side of the key. This also gets worn down by corrosion, or if the little screw inside's not being tightened up properly. So if you notice you have any of those issues, then stop the video, do yourself a favour and go buy the full replacement kit. Otherwise you're in luck. Let's carry on with the job. This neck seal can be tricky to get out, so just make sure you don't damage it. Most of the time these seals are fine to reuse, so just flip them around. If you find that they're too worn out or that you've damaged them trying to get them out, then you'll have to replace these with new ones. I'll leave a link to these as well in the description. Next up is the 008 O-ring. At the time of recording this, I don't actually have the correct HNBR types with me, so I'll have to use a silicone one just for the purposes of this video. But the lesson here, kids, do not use silicone on this key. You will either snap it trying to get it on, or it'll get torn up over time and you'll have water leaking again inside the machine. And there we have it. Once the machine's all back together, you should have a drip-free steam wand.